Hi there VC, it's Steve Whitty here with another video, recent finds, recent listens, whatever I decide to call it. I hope everybody's well. It's Bank Holiday Monday here today, and not sure what I'm going to do. Extra day of work, but I thought, as I've not recorded a video in the past couple of weeks, I thought I'd do one today. These records I'm going to show you all vinyl, all recent listens, as I said. So I hope everyone's well. I'm all good. It's been busy, but I'm all good. So first up, the Hollies Greatest. This is a late 60s compilation in mono, and you can tell by the dress sense that this is very much of that ilk. Sort of, I think, released just prior to Graham Nash leaving to form Crosby, Stills and Nash. You've got on here all probably the big hits: Bus Stop, Carry On, King Midas in Reverse, I'm Alive, which was their first number one. It was their only number one in the '60s. And then you've got Stay on a Carousel. My favourite, Look Through Any Window, by far their best song. Stop, 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 Jennifer Eccles. Graham Nash has always said, where they've been lucky, the Hollies were lucky. They knew how to pick up a good song and record it and make it a hit single. So excuse the glare there. And I think that I think they sometimes get overlooked with all the bands of the '60s, but they were as popular as anything singles wise. I just think that probably, particularly Graham Nash, they probably wanted to crave a bit more serious audience, and I think the direction, Graham Nash, I think, wrote King Midas in Reverse was an aim at that, and I think it was that great a hit. I think Graham Nash disillusioned a little bit. Just decided, I thought, I'm going to try my luck elsewhere. Also, I don't think he was too much of a fan as the album they recorded was Dylan covers, which I don't think he was too keen on. One of my favourite YouTube channels is watching Jonesy's Jukebox, featuring Steve Jones on, I think, radio station KLOS. Good, entertaining watch. And this is Steve Jones' Fire and Gasoline album, solo album, that came out in 1989, I believe. I think he'd come geography. A lot of involvement from the Cult in Asprey, co-produced, I believe, and Billy Duffy plays guitar on some of the tracks. I would like to say it's a good album. Well, it is not a bad album. It's very typical 80s rock, 80s rock metal. All I would say on this is Steve Jones's voice compared to how he sounded in the Pistols, totally different. I think that was a big shock, because this was the first, when I found this, it was the first time I'd listened to the album, and it totally shocked me a little bit about how American, I suppose, for want of a better word, he sounded. Another late 80s album. Now, I've mentioned before that the self-titled Katrina and the Waves album is one of my favourite albums of the 80s, and I still stand by that. The follow-up, Waves, isn't one of my favourite albums of the 80s, and it came out the year after. And unfortunately, I think what sport it within the Katrina and the Waves album, most of the songs were written by Kimberly Rue, and they were good songs. Here, I think the other members thought they could write songs, and they sort of, for want of a better word, sort of pushed in with their songs, and their songs aren't as good, and that's what makes the album not dip in quality. Best song for me on the album is the opening track. It's that hit. Not surprisingly, this album didn't sell as well as the previous album, and they were subsequently dropped by Capitol. They did record another album, which I've showed a couple of weeks ago. I still like Katrina Waves, I mean, they did have their big rise again with Love Builds a Bridge, the winner of the 1997 Eurovision Song Contest, but it's never as good as that first album. in the 80s, UK rock really did suffer a little bit. I think there were bands that was it struggled in comparison with American bands, the sort of bands that were going around, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Poison, Queensryche, and all that. They sort of struggled a little bit, apart from Def Leppard. But then it could be argued they sounded very American as well at that point. However, there were a couple of bands that tried to buck that trend, and one such band, Little Angels. Now, Young Gods, this is their second album, released in 1991, and this is a really good album. I've forgotten how good this was. I had it on CD, and I think I sold it years ago. The tracks on here, Boneyard, which was the lead single, the title track, Young Gods, Stand Up, Stand Up, Product of the Working Class, the ballad I Ain't Gonna Cry. Absolutely corking album. Now, I believe at the time there was this story going around that they were going to call this album Spitfire. But this was released, as I said, 1991, which around the time of the first Gulf conflict, and they changed their mind. Now, I find that it's one of those, do I believe it, or do I think it's just a bit of record company hype? It doesn't take away how good an album it is. And then they followed it up 2 years later with Jam. Now, this reached number 1 in the UK, and this is just their masterpiece. Too Much, Too Young, Splendid Isolation, Soapbox, Don't Confuse Sex with Love, Womankind, and they do a great version. The Kinks' Tired of Waiting for You, and what's even better was this album came with the 10-inch Live Jam EP, which you've got on here. All the tracks on here are live versions of She's a Little Angel, Product of the Working Class, Ain't Gonna Cry, Boneyard, Don't Pray For Me, and The Who's Won't Get Fooled Again. This is just absolutely wonderful. I think it got to number 1 in the UK album charts. However, you'd think they would be able to kick on from that. Sadly, they split up within the year. Record company indifference, I think, led to some of it. And plus, there was the start of the change and shift in British music going towards the Britpop, and I think these would have been out of step a little bit, which was a shame. There've been a couple of attempts to get them back together, but it's never going to be as good as this, unfortunately. Let's have a quick slurp. Changing the mood a little bit, and this is Donna Summer's Live and More. This is a mixture of live and studio. So first 3 sides of the record are live, and then the more is the studio. And how can I describe the live album? You'll have to forgive that noise. I think something's come through on the iPad. The live album, it's very, very Vegas-y show from what I'm listening to. Very schmaltzy, a lot of banter, very much of its time. If you like that sort of thing, it's great. Brings the daughter out on one of the songs, Mimi song, and it's that sugar coated. Oh, I have to go visit the dentist after I listen to it. But the interesting side actually is the Moore side, which is the MacArthur Park suite, which opens with MacArthur Park, then goes into One of a Kind, Heaven Knows, and then finishes off with MacArthur Park. When Abridged reached a single, MacArthur Park was quite a big hit in the UK for Donna Summer. And I have no problem actually with that, because I've got quite a few of the early Donna Summer albums, and I actually enjoy listening to them. I think, as I said, I think disco at his best, he's up there with any genre of music. I think it's like any genre. You have your bad stuff, and the bad stuff I think tends to stick in the mind a little bit more. But you do have to remember that, really, really some really good stuff out there. Again, slightly changing tact. We've got Blues Jam at Chess. This is a double album. As it says, it's very much a jam at Chess Records, featuring Fleetwood Mac, Otis Spann, Willie Dixon. You can see the rest of the artists on here. And this is obviously the Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green and Jeremy Spencer, Danny Kirwan. Recorded at the Chess Termar Studios in Chicago in January 1969. You can see the photos there of the sessions. And obviously, it's a snapshot of what was going on at the time. It's a really good album, actually. Really great playing on here. Jeremy Spencer, I think, is on vocals on a song called I Can't Hold Out. It's just Peter Green's on vocals. It's just absolutely wonderful. Wonderful timepiece. Absolutely reminder how wonderful Fleetwood Mac with Pete Green were. I know there was a hoo-ha about him when Lindsey Buckingham got kicked out. Oh, don't bother with them again. There are a few people, especially in the UK, who would never think of listening to any other Fleetwood Mac than the Peter Green era. I'm not one of those people, because I think both eras have their own merits. Again, changing tact. I've found a few 12-inch singles, and probably the best of these is Something Good by Utah Saints. Something Good was they took the Something Good part from Kate Bush's Cow Busting, and she gave them permission to use this. This is just absolutely wonderful piece of dance music at the time. Wondrous, and it just builds. Used the Something Good is going to happen, and used that as the main sort of riff, and built the song around it. It's absolutely wonderous. Wondrous tune. Takes me back to my 20s. Not that I went around much rave scenes at that time. It wasn't my cup of tea, but good tune's a good tune. So happy to find out. I'm not really bothered about finding any other stuff by Utah Saints. I just remember enjoying that song. Talking of Kate Bush, Sensual World, released in 1989. I'm so pleased to find it. Cost me a tenner, but it is so wonderful condition. She'd moved again, like all great artists, moved away, didn't stand still, left on laurels of Hounds of Love, which was huge for her. Moved in another direction, got more involved in world music. I think the trio Boyarika, I think that's how you pronounce it. Got involved with them. They were a trio of female vocalists from Bulgaria, which was quite a big thing, because Bulgaria was still closed off at that point. This is just before the fall of communism. So you got the Sensual World title track, some other great songs, Deeper Understanding, Heads Were Dancing, Love and Anger. But this woman's work is just absolute masterpiece of a song. By far the best song on the album. In fact, it's probably one of the best songs Kate Bush has ever recorded. Never made that big a hit single, but it's just absolutely wonderful. It can move you to tears if you catch it on the wrong day. Absolutely wonderful. I've said that she should be Dame Kate Bush, and I stand by that. And she's too good for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Too good. Another esteemed artist, this is Van Morrison, Tupelo Honey. Now, yes, I've been told when I brought it, this is his happy album. And I could sense that. He was happily married at the time. He was living just outside Woodstock. And this is just, again, another wonderful album. The songs are just brilliant. The title track, it's just wonderful. Co-produced with Ted Templeman. As I say, there's a lot of Van Morrison to get into. Slowly getting into him. So if I can find some more, I will. I just think it's just a wonderful, wonderful tune. Wonderful tune, wonderful album. Pleased to have it. This is it's a reissue because of the barcode, not an original. Another reissue. but this is just a classic album. This is Portishead's Dummy. And I found HMV, where town I worked, it's one of those that's closed. And I went in there just for old time's sake and picked up this. It was going for $12.99, and I thought I'll have it. I have got the CD somewhere, but I just think this is a wonderful album. Sort of really groundbreaking, very 60s soundtrack. You just think of Beth Gibbons' haunting vocals on this makes the album. Just the whole tune. It's just absolutely wonderful. It's just something to mellow out to. It's actually, I find it a perfect Sunday morning record. But and I think what made it stand out, I remember saying, reading Joe Perry from Aerosmith saying this is one of his favourite albums, and he got turned on to this by Steve Tyler, who said this is wonderful. And so just the fact it got everybody, the one his dog seemed to be listening to this album, really great. A band that I've started to get more of an appreciation for recently is Simple Minds. Now I found these quite cheaply. Debut album, I think, is Life in a Day. You can see it's water damaged. This is a Virgin reissue. I think the original came out on Arista Records. And it said band on the back. Very punk new wave. It's new wave. I dare say there's elements of this. This is where it's very, I would say, a bit krautrocky in elements as well into this. As I said, Life in the Day, the title track, Chelsea Girl. I think this is a wonderful album. This is an album that obviously now obviously knowing how big, particularly in the UK, Simple Minds became. You can see where the seeds had been sown. And I also then found this as well. Now this is Sister Feelings Core. 1981 this came out. Again, this is before they became popular. They started having hit singles in 1982 with Promise You a Miracle. But again, you could see the direction they were going in. Theme for Great City, American 20th Century Promised Land. Wonderful in Young Life, Lead Nations, Careful in Career, Sound into Cities, in 70 Cities, sorry. This is just, again, another really good album. I really didn't realise how good that early stuff. I wasn't really aware, like a lot of people. I sort of jumped in when they started having the hits, particularly in the early 80s in the UK. Really pleased to have found that. We're almost done, VC. I've only got a couple more to show. Undertones, Positive Touch from 1981. This album represented a very big shift in their sound. It also marked a shift in quite a lot of ways. They left Sire Records, signed to EMI, who allowed them to set up their own record label, Ardec. And it is a shift. They tried to be a bit more mature. The guitars weren't as up front. Tracks like It's Gonna Happen. This is probably the only time they ever sung about the troubles in Northern Ireland. If you weren't aware, Undertones from Derry, and at this time tensions were really high. In fact, the best say hunger strikes had just started. Now, basically the hunger strikes were IRA prisoners in British jails. They wanted the right to be classed as prisoners of war, and they'd done all sorts of dirty campaign where they smeared excrement or all over their walls, wouldn't wear prison clothing, and ultimately they thought the only way we're going to get anything, anyone listening to us, was we're going to go on hunger strike. And yesterday, May the 5th, was the anniversary of the first one, Bobby Sands dying. He starved himself to death, and he of course led because there was a by-election in Northern Ireland, and he managed to get elected as an MP before he died. And the Undertones appeared on Top of the Pops with the lead single performing that It's Going to Happen. It's going to happen, sorry. And this is basically about what was happening in Northern Ireland at the time. And I think Damien O'Neill, I think the plan was they were all going to wear black armbands, but I think everyone apart from Damien O'Neill sort of backed out at the last moment, and he appeared on Top of the Pops with a black armband in sort of memory of Bobby Sands. The album itself, the problem I think the Undertones had was the public, their fans, wanted them to be singing about teenage kicks and all things about growing up, and weren't prepared to let the band grow up. For songs like Julie Ocean, When Saturday Comes, Positive Touch, it's a really good album. If you listen to it without expecting the previous albums. The only album I've got to this, and with that Fergal Shark I've got to get now, is Sin of Pride, which I believe was more, they moved back into a more soulful direction, dropped the politics. But I think as a period of time, it still stands up. But it's a shame sometimes fans, we're a bit too, we're not prepared to let artists grow. We want them to be what we always want them to be. Final album in this batch is XTC's The Black Sea. This released, I believe, 1980. I think 1980 or 1981. No, it's 1980. I believe this might be the band's fourth album. Yeah. It's the band I wanted to be getting hold of. It's just, again, great album. I know some people say it's their favourite XTC album. Towers of London, Sergeant Rock's on here. Where else? Generals and Majors. Generals and Majors, when it came out, everyone thought it was going to be a big hit, and it didn't. I know, and the big hit of the album was Sergeant Rock, and they got a bit of flack at the time when it came out, because the lyric "Gonna make that girl line, wave the victory sign," it was seen as a bit, I suppose, not so much sexist, but more, how can I put it? I suppose it's not so much abusive to women, but it was sort of like being overpowering to women. And I think a few feminists were a bit up in arms about it. But hey, everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's a great album. Need to find some more XTC to complete the collection. So thank you, VC, for sticking up with me. I think it's gone over 20 odd minutes, which wasn't the plan, but you know what? It's good to talk, as they used to say on an advert in the UK. So I hope everyone is well. I'm a bit behind with everyone's videos, 2 weeks behind. So hopefully I'm going to chance to take today to, once I publish this video, to catch up, watch a few more videos. Probably some videos I'm going to have to cut out. I've cut out all the record store day ones. Apologies for those people who watch my watch my channels and put those out. As I said, it wasn't for me. So apart from one, Millie Chris, good to see him back. So how can I end this video? Well, if you like what you've seen and you wish to comment, well, thumbs up, thumbs down first if you like. You know, I always love the interaction. Feel free to comment. I will get back to you. And if you like what you see, now this is what I was going to try and say. This is why you fall out of practice of doing videos. Click on the subscribe button. But you know, it's more the merrier, as they say. So I'll end this video because I am rambling on a little bit. Is take care of yourselves, keep spinning, and more importantly, keep smiling.